The podcast guys were basically taken for a ride. Like, they're looking at it as, look, Trump knew that he wasn't going to get asked anything that he might get on NBC News or anywhere else. He basically wanted to use the audience to convince them that he was a normal dude and get them to vote for him.
Trump and those people used the podcast sphere to manipulate their way into the White House by like assuming this like, oh, I'm just your friend. It's me, bro. Trump, your buddy.
Recently, Schultz and the Giggly Squad had Sagaar from Breaking Points on to break down the full Epstein conspiracy, and then Sagaar swapped seats with Schultz, which made Akash upset because now Schultz is out of arm's length and can't do this.
like a game.
Or this. Anyways, the reason for this is so Sagaar, who's a political journalist / presenter, can ask the gang about how they feel post-election with Trump's new track record, and also how they feel about the way they interviewed him last year. Schultz has gotten a lot of flack lately, mainly from people who are angry with Trump for good reason, especially when it comes to this Epstein cover-up, because they had him on the podcast, and so some feel they bear some responsibility, however small, for what's happening. Fast forward, Schultz recently had some criticism for Trump.
Like, there'll be people that like, they'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this. Yeah. I want him to stop the wars. He's funding them. I want him to shrink spending, reduce the budget. He's increasing it. It's like everything that he said he's going to do.
So Sagaar's questioning is related to this, and he's definitely a friend of Schultz. He's been on the pod a few times over the years, but Sagaar is also a journalist, so he has to ask certain questions. And even though this is a friendly interview, the line of questioning kind of makes Schultz look like an idiot.
So like the left independent media that I have been able to interact with, they have a theory that the podcast guys were basically taken for a ride. Like, they're looking at it as, look, Trump knew that he wasn't going to get asked anything that he might get on NBC News or anywhere else. He basically wanted to use the audience to convince them that he was a normal dude and get them to vote for him. Speaking generally, like to the Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan and Nelk Boys and all of the podcast, the Bussin', podcast, and all Bussin' with the Boys and all of that. Like, he obviously used that to some political advantage, and now many of those people are upset. And they're not necessarily as willing as you to kind of speak out against that or to invite the other side.
Who is upset?
Well, I'm saying so. Some of the people who privately have had on these people may be upset at the thing.
Another
that Trump has
podcaster might
done.
be upset with Trump, but
but they're not as willing right now, to be able to say it, or they have to couch their criticisms maybe less so than you have. So, like, how do you look at it, like, generally?
For me personally, I'm curious. I've heard so much things about Trump from the media. Oh, he's that, he's this, he's that. But seeing him in person in long form, he has less of an opportunity to bullshit us. Like, once you're talking for a good amount of time, you can start to gauge, and I wanted to really know who he was. And I got a sense he was much sharper than I thought he was. Like, he's
incredibly sharp.
He's aware of everything going on.
He's a media creature.
Yeah,
exactly.
so it's like that.
It's actually amazing to watch. I agree.
To me, anybody who wouldn't want to speak to somebody who's former president and potentially the next
You're
president.
not a serious person.
Yeah, like, it doesn't
No,
make
we're
any
not
sense.
talking about this isn't a platforming argument.
No, but they're saying that they might have used us.
This is about being used, like, to the extent of, like, to convince voters and to use people. Because, look, I'm telling you guys, this did happen. Like, I had multiple Trump interview requests in, and they were basically like, no. And I heard it off the record. It's like, bro, you're going to ask him 2 hard questions. Like, this, it was quite literally told to me, right? Now, I mean, there's a reason he's going on Theo Vaughn and all, and other places, because they didn't think that was going to happen.
So let's break that down. First of all, Sagaar cleverly poses the question from the standpoint of, oh, this is what leftist independent media thinks. So the question comes across as less confrontational, but it forces them to answer a tough question. Schultz should actually take note if he's going to keep cosplaying as a political journalist. So let's call it what it is, which is an accusation that Trump's campaign used a bunch of podcast shows for promotion to young voters, and they knew they wouldn't get any tough questions. Even with Alex's pushback, Sagaar actually reinforces the question with the fact that Breaking Points, Sagaar's channel, were denied access because they would have asked too many hard questions. Now, Schultz doesn't address that because what can he say? It's the truth. So Alex steps in with the same defensive argument that Schultz has actually been saying for a while now, which is, well, who wouldn't want to talk to the former president? Which is a much better answer than admitting that your platform was used for promotion. These guys get a bump in revenue and get to brag about having the president on, but they feel zero responsibility about asking tough questions. They're just too busy slapping each other's knees and bragging about how important they are.
Maybe we are as powerful as they think we are.
We changed politics, dude. You know what's so crazy? This group influenced the presidential election of 2024.
Yo, listen.
Ain't that fucking crazy?
Don't even say influence. We decided.
We were the turning point.
Just know. And we'll be left out of everything, and that's fine. We don't give a fuck about the credit. We know what we do.
I don't need this credit.
It's fine. We'll be left out of everything. It's totally fine. It doesn't matter. That is the nature of things that we started. Everybody else does it. But he was not up until this pod.
It's true.
After the pod, he surges, 3 or 4%?
It was always easy to see that certain podcasts were used for promotion in this election, but that's pretty much how podcasts work. Different comedians go on each other's shows, and usually they're on there because they're promoting their special or their tour dates. So I get the argument that, hey, this is how they conduct all their interviews. But when it comes to politics, the stakes are much, much different. Some comedians have had some pushback for the whole politics-comedy relationship. Dan Soder, for instance, recently spoke about this with journalist Andrew Callahan about comics being used. And Andrew Santino has talked about his concern of the fact that comedians are suddenly able to have a lot of sway when it comes to elections.
They use the news machine as their propaganda apparatus. They just pump money into it and hypnotize the public. But what's worse now is they're figuring out how to do it with independent media and podcasting.
Sure.
And you're seeing a lot of these podcasters, I'm sure you've seen this, leaning into the mainstream media. And I knew that was suspicious when I saw it.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Because I was like, wait a second. If you're saying I don't want to shit on any podcasters.
Sure.
But it's like,
I'm fine with it if you want to, though.
You're saying,
I'll fucking throw some...
fuck Fox News, yet you give Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, and Jake Paul a front row at the fucking inauguration.
Yeah.
And the Nelk Boys, I think, were there too, but they got snubbed. But the point is, I'm saying it's like, they used, Trump and those people used the podcast sphere to manipulate their way into the White House by assuming this oh, I'm just your friend. It's me,
bro.
Trump, your buddy.
And what's funny is people get so mad. I don't like any politicians.
Me either.
I've never liked anybody. There's no point of them being a public servant. Mm-hmm. They're all there for themselves. And it's crazy because you'll say that, you'll be like, I don't know, man. I kind of feel weird with Elon being an unelected foreigner fucking with our shit. And they'll be like, you what the fuck? And Biden, you go, fuck Biden too.
Yeah. I just don't think we want politicians on the show.
No.
I think that's a strange world.
Pete Buttigieg I'd have.
He's gay?
Yeah.
No, thanks. Ban it. No.
It's getting a little muddled, right? It's getting a little, what's going on?
I just think podcasting, comedy podcasting is entering this world of news or something.
Yeah.
And people are taking it serious. And it's not.
Well, there was an article after the election about how legacy media doesn't have the, power it once had, and that podcasting is now, replacing some of that,
That's not good.
Yeah.
We shouldn't replace it. This should be its own thing.
I think they both made great points. Santino has the self-awareness to understand that he's out of his depth when it comes to politics. So lending your platform in a presidential race seems like a bad idea. Most comics would arrive at that conclusion. They typically, I think they're supposed to be critics of those in power, not try to make them more relatable to their fans. The Nelk Boys just did this with Bibi Netanyahu, who's accused of war crimes by the International Criminal Court. I mean, we've all seen what's happening out there. And after receiving pushback from their fans, they admitted that they didn't do any preparation for their interview. In fact, the Israeli government gave them the questions to ask, handing over their platform to be useful idiots. But they did it for views. Flagrant aren't as bad, but it's a similar tale. Trump knew these interviews would be an easy ride.
And people were like, this guy's a monster, he's not a human being. Then we humanize him. That's what he keeps saying.
Let's game theory this, Akash.
Yeah.
Okay, we are so powerful and influential by simply sitting down with him.
Yeah.
Right? We made him president.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one would think that if we are disillusioned by some of the things that he is doing as president, and we're upset that same influence might be able to make someone else president. So shouldn't you be embracing this massive influence?
Yeah,
that you
come
say
to
you
our
have?
side.
Claim we have, yeah.
When Schultz ponders that, hey, if we have this much influence, shouldn't you be nicer to us and embrace us on the left? This seems hyperbolic, but honestly, the way Schultz's ego has grown, it's getting harder to tell when he's being serious. Instead of looking back and admitting that maybe their approach was flawed, maybe they should have had more important questions about things that would affect the lives of their millions of viewers, or just pass on the interview because it might just look like an endorsement. But I guess that's in the past. God forbid you call them out on it.
I know this is crazy, but did you know that politicians lie?
Wow.
That's something I just found out.
Wow.
Someone was like, Trump's a fucking liar. You didn't know he was a fucking liar? And I was like, oh, I thought they were all liars. I didn't realize that there were people that tell you the truth in politics.
So I guess Schultz has come to the conclusion that they invited a politician to lie to not only them, but all of their fans. And oopsie, now that guy's president, but let's brag about how he helped make that happen. But now some of their fans are saying, hey, didn't you know that Trump likes to lie? Their response is basically, duh guys, didn't you know that politicians lie? This is why Sagaar's question to them is so important, because it's the first time someone has suggested to their face that they were used. But now in this discussion, he also addressed the accusation of being a grifter, but the argument he used had me raise my eyebrows. He claims he had inside knowledge that his special would be up for an Emmy, but there's no way he could win because he had Trump on.
And in the entertainment industry, the industry that we exist in, you're putting yourself in harm's way,
dude. Of course.
So I don't even, like, for example, like, just, I mean, I had flat out the Netflix people saying, and who fucking knows, but like, you know, I'm up for consideration or whatever for an Emmy for life. And I just had people tell me straight up, they're like, listen, dude, like, yeah, Trump on the pod, like, there's no way that they're going to give you. It is the best hour comedy that was put out. It should win. It just is. You know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to anybody's there, but it's not as good.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, but and if you want to judge it by any metric, you want to judge it by views, it has more views. If you want to judge it by like impact, you want to judge it by comedy, in my personal opinion, obviously. But like, that's the cost of it.
You guys see, he had nothing to gain and everything to lose with having Trump on. The poor guy is going to lose out on an Emmy because the live special is clearly the best comedy special of the year. Personally, I think he's grasping for straws here. His special had good reviews. It's a decent 71% audience score, but I would say calling it the best of the year is subjective. But now to act as though he had nothing to gain, as if his public profile wasn't raised, it did great numbers for his pod. He had a recent New York Times article and podcast where he's labeled America's foremost political journalist. So it sure seems like this interview benefited both parties. Schultz couldn't stop bragging about it after it happened.
He was not up until this pod.
That's true.
After the pod, he surges, what, 3 or 4%?
Yeah, it was a rap, dude.
Never went back down after that.
He wants to brag that the candidate that came on his pod and a few others ended up winning, and the candidate that chose not to do that ended up losing, and so he seems to be basking in taking some responsibility for Trump's success. If everything was going well in this administration, you better believe that Schultz and the Gigglies would be joking about how they helped make this happen, but now would rather distance themselves and say, hey, at least we're holding him accountable now. Schultz and the Flagrant team have been on the defensive and grappling with the problems that come from the fact that they're comedians doing political commentary and high-profile interviews, but you can't take them too seriously and expect them to ask tough questions because they're comedians. Maybe this is a sign that they should just take a break from politics, since they are a comedy podcast. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit the like and subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys later.